Your Amazon handmade listings are gonna get lost in the crowd, and it's just not about having a good product. It's about whether or not you're listing your product for maximum visibility. I am going to share 4 must-have elements and a bonus tip that you need when you're listing your product so that it stands out and sells. So let's jump right in. Today, we're gonna cover just some of the basics. We're not gonna go into all the details. I have a plan for more videos after this one, kind of in this same series, that we'll talk about all of these in more detail, but I wanted to kind of give you some basics of what we're gonna be discussing and why these are important. So, number 1, your photos. Just like on Etsy or any other selling platform, your photos are super important to get your product in front of your customers. This is how your customer sees your product for the first time, and you wanna make sure that it is high quality and meets all the requirements from Amazon. They're also gonna see the product title and the price when they're searching, but if you're like me, a lot of times the first thing you look at is the photo. So if I'm searching for a camera, for instance, I'm gonna type in digital camera and I'm gonna look at the photos, because those photos I can see the brand name and I can see what the camera looks like, and then I'm gonna read the title beside of it. So I kind of see it all at the same time, but the photo is the one thing that's gonna kind of draw my attention. So the requirements for handmade photos used to be different, but as Amazon tries to streamline their search results and their platform, they've included some of the requirements for handmade that they also require on the regular Amazon platform. The first thing that you have to remember is to keep your first photo with a true white background. So if you have a product that you're actually taking a picture of, you can take the picture, jump into Canva or some other photo editing software and remove the background. You do want to make sure that the photo still looks real and that it doesn't look like a mock-up. A lot of handmade sellers use mock-ups, and I go for digital photos just because it's easier with the stickers to see the details and not have to get all the lighting correct every single time I try to take a photo. It's just easier for my products, but they do want you to have actual photos in your listing. So the first photo, you also don't want to include any accessories or text. They want it to be just the image of the product. So if you look at a lot of the listings on Amazon, say you're searching for cat food, you're just gonna see the bag. You're not gonna see a cat with it. You're not gonna see a bowl. You're not gonna see a bunch of text around it. You're just gonna see the bag of food. And that is one thing that Amazon is really requiring, so that it is very obvious what you're purchasing when you click on that listing. Now, that doesn't mean you can't put a picture of a cat eating the food out of a bowl later in the photos. It just can't be the first photo. So we'll dive more into photos in an upcoming video, but just know that your very first photo has to be a true white background of just your product. So the number 2 thing is your title, obviously, because that's the second thing that your customer is gonna look at when they purchase their products. Amazon does have some guidelines for titles, in that there's certain words and phrases you can't use or that they discourage you from using, but some basics about the title. You want to make sure you cover all the basics of the item. So I'll try to put a picture of one of my titles up on the screen so you can get an idea. They like for you to put your brand name first and then list what your product is. I also like to include since I'm selling sticker sheets, the number of stickers and the number of sheets that are included. That way it gives the customer an idea of how much they're buying, because when they're looking at that on the search page, they're gonna see the photo, they're gonna see the title, and they're gonna see the price. They're also gonna see some other relevant information like a Prime badge or something like that. So you wanna make sure that it is very obvious what they're buying between kind of the 3 main things that they're gonna see on the search results page. So you want to cover all the basics of the product in as few words as possible, and Amazon recommends 200 characters, and that can vary a little bit differently from Etsy or some of the other platforms. I know on Shopify, I name my things very differently than I do, say, on Amazon or Etsy, because I'm trying to also rank in search. And if someone's on my website, they're really only typing in what they're looking for, and I'm not competing with a bunch of other products that I need to get mine to show up at the top. So there's some things that I don't include in my Shopify listing, like my brand name. They're already on my website, so I don't need to include that. Like I said, these are some of the basics. We're gonna get into titles in more detail in another video. But the third thing that you want to keep in mind is your description and your bullet points. So the bullet points are probably Definitely the third most important thing about your listing. So once your customer clicks on your listing, if you've looked at listings on Amazon, you notice there's some bullet points and it lists out 1 to 5. Amazon allows up to 5 bullet points, and I highly recommend using all 5 if at all possible. I even have some stuff in there that Amazon doesn't really recommend, but as a handmade seller may be relevant to the person who's purchasing the item. There's a little bit different mindset for handmade sellers than just a regular Amazon seller. So you do want to draw the attention of the customer and list out some of the specifics about your item that you couldn't get in your title. So I list out things like what kind of paper it's printed on, how it's printed. I include whether or not they can get custom items, because sometimes if they're seeing something and they're like, I like this, but I want it to be all one color or that kind of thing, I have in there that I can do, you know, custom items as well. So you're allowed 5 bullet points, and you don't want to exceed 15 words or 500 characters per bullet point. So this would be 1,000 characters total. And that doesn't sound like a lot, but it really is when you start looking at the way some of the products are listed. I definitely think some Amazon sellers abuse the bullet points and the premise of why they were put there. Amazon put them there so that you can highlight some of the very important features about your product, and it makes it easier for the customer to know what they're buying. So you also want to make sure you put them in order of importance. So if it's important that your item has a warranty for 1 year, you want to put that toward the top. If that's not something that your item has or includes, then you can not include that, which my items don't have a warranty, so that's not something I include. You definitely don't want to overstuff them with keywords, because you want these to be easy to read from your customer point of view, and you don't want to confuse them by adding in keywords that may not be relevant to what they're looking for. Obviously, your bullet points are going to be different for every item. I sell only stickers, so I can copy and paste a lot of them between my listings. I do change them up slightly to try to make them look different so that they're not reading the same thing over and over again. But you definitely, if you sell different items, want to make sure that you include different bullet points for different items. We're going to discuss the description and bullet points more in upcoming videos. Know that your description is going to show unless you have A+ content. If you're brand registered and you have A+ content on your page, then that description will not show up, and it will just be the bullet points. And in the upcoming video, we'll talk about this more, and I'll give you some examples of listings with A+ content and listings that don't have A+ content, so you can get an idea of what the difference is. So the fourth thing that you want to think about and really consider when you're making your product is your offer section. So in the listing, there's different sections or different tabs per se. They're not really tabbed out, but there's like words at the top of the page, and there's different sections that you can fill out for your product. The one that you want to really pay attention to is the offer section. And this is where you're going to put your price, whether or not there's tax charged, which there should always be tax charged, and whether or not you want to offer gift wrapping or anything like that, that will be in that offer section. So the other thing that's on this page that is more important or just as important as the price is your production time. So I've run into this a couple of times. If you leave your production time blank, Amazon assumes that it is a ready to ship item, meaning you have it in stock sitting on a shelf and you can just pull it off and ship it straight to the customer. They're looking for that super fast turnaround, so you want to make sure that you fill in a production time that makes sense for you. I try to put mine on, 2 to 4 days. That way I've got some time that if I don't have something already printed in inventory, I have some time to get it printed and shipped out. It does add the production time into the date that it needs to ship by. So just kind of keep that in mind, that if you leave it blank, it's going to be an immediate, need to send it out that day kind of thing. And then it will also, so when you have an order, it will also talk about delivery time. So you're going to have your ship time, which is based on your production time of when the item can go out. And it will give you dates that you need to ship by. And typically it's a range of a couple of days, depending on when the item's ordered. If it's ordered on a Friday night, then obviously it's gonna kick it to probably Monday, maybe Saturday, depending on how you have everything set up. But a lot of times it will kick it to Monday, unless Monday's a holiday, and then it will kick it to a Tuesday. So just keep that in mind. And then the delivery time is based on your preferred way of shipping. So I have the USPS ground advantage set as my preferred shipping method. So if that's a 3 to 4 day turnaround on the shipping, it counts that into your delivery days. So it has a way to kind of give you an idea of when something's going to get there. Obviously that can change based on, you know, whether USPS is running on time or if there's a bunch of weather or that kind of thing, but it gives the customer and you an idea of when the item should arrive. So I said there would be a bonus tip, and that is your search words. So there's a couple of different ways as a handmade seller that we can put in search terms. So you can use your title and your description and your bullet points to pull in some of those keywords, but you also get another box for search terms. This is going to be similar to your tags on Etsy. So on Etsy, you're limited to 13 tags. They're 20 characters a piece, and you have to break them up to make them fit. Amazon gives you one box, and it's a big box, and you just put word after word after word. No commas, just spaces. And then that gives you the maximum number of characters, and you don't have to worry about splitting them up into 13 tags where you get 15 on one and 20 on another, and you're losing those 5 characters between the two when you probably could have added another word somewhere else. So something to consider is you do get one big box. We could talk about search terms and keywords for hours, but let's not. We'll have another video talking about SEO, but the search terms are located on the product page. So when you first pull in your product, there'll be a box that says search terms. As handmade sellers, we also have access to some other types of search capabilities. So you'll get your normal things like size and color and that kind of thing, but we also have one called style. That's unique to us, and also occasion, I believe, is also unique. So you can fill in certain things. Some of these are drop down, some are not. So for style, it could be boho or casual or modern or traditional or things like that. So if you're selling tables or furniture, you can categorize it that way. If it's for an occasion like Mother's Day or Valentine's Day or Christmas, you can go in and fill in an occasion. And a lot of times what I'll do is I have some items that are specifically geared toward Christmas, like some tags for boxes that say to from. I'll tag those as Christmas as the occasion because they're obviously Christmas items. If I were to create some that weren't Christmas specific, then I would change them for birthday or Mother's Day or whatever. So keep in mind that you can include the occasion as well. And you definitely want to consider the words that you're using. So an example, I sell stickers, so I want to include adjacent products. I can put decorative planning stickers in my title, but I may also want to include planner, journal. You really can't use bullet journal. You can split it up. You can call it bullet over here and journal over here, but if you try to put a trademarked phrase in your search terms or description or bullet points or anywhere, it's gonna kick it out. I've had mine get kicked out for using the words bullet journal. So you wanna make sure that anything that you're including isn't trademarked. Like I said, you can split it up and I can put journal and then I can put bullet somewhere else. Dot grid is another one that I tend to use. Weekly planner, daily planner. So the other thing you don't wanna do, now that I've said that, daily planner, weekly planner, you wanna put daily, weekly planner. You don't wanna repeat the word multiple times. 1, you're losing valuable space, and 2, you don't need to repeat it. Amazon sees that word and knows that you're wanting to rank for planner. So it will combine those words, doesn't matter what order they're in, it will combine those and the things in your title or in your description and rank you based on those words that you've included. So there are some prohibited terms. Like I said, you don't want to use a trademark term. You also don't want to put your SKU anywhere. I know a lot of times on Etsy, we have our own SKU system where we try to keep up, especially if we have hundreds of products. I know at one point with the planner stickers, a lot of the shops will have tons of different options and they'll add the SKU or the kit number or whatever into their title. You definitely don't want to do that on Amazon. It's not needed. And it just kind of junks up the title a little bit and makes it hard to search for. You definitely want to include things like the theme, like doing the planner stickers and it's a St. Patrick's Day theme. You want to include St. Patrick's Day as part of your search words, either in your title or your description, or put it in your terms if there's a different way. So like St. Patrick's Day or St. Patty's Day or whatever, you can include it multiple different ways in different sections of your listing, just like you would on Etsy. You also can't include the ASIN. That I haven't tried to include an ASIN. I'm assuming it would suppress it. You also don't want to include profanity. They will definitely suppress it if you include that. I'm not sure how deep the profanity goes. Obviously, there's certain words you can't include, but there's other words that I'm not sure what they would do if you used them, because some items do have maybe the S word. I'm trying not to get demonetized. Not the S word or the D word or something like that. I don't know if those would be pressed. They may be. So just be careful about what you include in those words. You also don't want to include brand names in your search term, yours or others, and that's where I say come back to the trademark. You definitely don't want to target another brand in your search terms, so you don't want to use things like bullet journal that's already trademarked. You don't need to include your brand name because it's already showing up a couple of places. You're already listed as the brand. You already have included it in your title, so you really don't need to take up room in your search terms, which is a valuable space with your brand name again. You also don't want to include any temporary statements, meaning you don't want to put new or best-selling or sale or anything like that. Again, you really shouldn't include those anyway. Amazon includes it as a thing that's prohibited because it's not always going to be on sale. It's not always going to be new. It may not always be best-selling, so they don't want you to include that, but that's really just not a good use of your search terms anyway. You definitely want to let things like best-selling and sale kind of show up on their own, be part of the listing if that's really what it is. Amazon limits your box to 250 bytes, which is typically characters, but maybe slightly different. What I recommend is doing a word count tool and dropping, or character count tool, and dropping it into search terms into the box so that you can see how many characters you've used. There's a couple of different ways to do this online. If you just type in character count, it should come up. That'll give you an idea. Also, if you're typing into the box, Amazon will actually, like, the box will turn red or something like that, and it will let you know that you've gone over the number of characters that you can have. And then when you're ready to get into advertising, these search terms will also help when you first start advertising. You'll get your organic searches where you show up in the search results, but then when you start advertising, you can pull from those search terms as well, and then you can kind of narrow it down and figure out what terms you should really be using based on your advertising and things like that. But that's a whole nother video and a whole lot more detail that we can get into when we are ready to tackle advertising. So if you liked the video and you would like to get advice on your listing or your SEO, I am working on a course that should be launching in March, and I am excited to offer a one-on-one 30-minute strategy session to those that sign up for the waitlist. You can sign up for the waitlist at primeforsuccess.co/waitlist. I'll drop it down in the box below as well. You'll just have to expand it out. And hopefully I see you in the course and you can join us and get some more tips on your own Amazon store and your own Amazon listings. Let me know what you're selling, if you're already on Amazon or not. I look forward to catching you in the next video. Bye.